So, ladies and gentlemen, in the second panel we saw Dan Liu and Xiaotian Zhang and how good English they had, 10 times better than mine. But now it is floor for Urmas Varblane, Vice Dean of University of Tartu, and we speak about investments. Please.
So, dear participants of the workshop or seminar and our our panel is last and hopefully not so least, but at least it is shortest. That is, of course, 1 hour for discussing questions. Investments from China is really limited amount of time, but I am happy to moderate it. And in our panel, we have in total, following list of participants, we have Mr. Markku Taulamo, partner TT Capital Advisors Limited. So I think let's do so that it is like it was told here, we have like a contents here. You take your seat and I will say Finland, first place. So now we have next participant is Xiaotian Zhang from Tartu's international trade. You see, he has many faces. He is doing many things. So now is another face as an entrepreneur. So, and he is our doctoral student, but he is also doing many other things and is very active. So typical Chinese, we can communicate. So next participant is Mr. Raul Allikivi, and Raul is, where is Raul is there? So Raul is famous in Estonia because he was one of the initiators of Estonian Asian program, which was discussed last year here in Parliament and also passed here as some strategy paper. So in that role, Raul was very influential in Estonia in that direction. And then we have Chief Executive Officer of Cleantech Östergötland, Gert Kindgren, from our partners in Sweden. So you see we have friendly people here who are all somehow related with also investments and investments from China or investing to China. So and I don't so waste time on introducing too much, but I will maybe say only a couple of words for the introduction. Because in my opinion, we need a bit to frame what we are discussing. And now the title of the presentations here and discussion is Investments from China. But in my opinion, we should look at a bit even maybe broader. China as a country investing into our region, and on the other hand, I think also we may a bit later discuss issues. China as a country which could provide us a lot of customers. As a country, investments in the form of customers who are consuming services, who are also helping our industry, our economy, our service sector. And that is, maybe there is even third aspect, but we don't have time today to talk about. It is China as a country which gives us also access to high-skilled employees in the future. It is European Union blue card policy, which you definitely know well, and where we can also use China as a source of really specialists in certain fields. But okay, that is a bit background. And now coming back to the China and its investments, I think in the very beginning, I give now a floor for Mr. Markku Taulamo, and he has presented also some slides. So please, floor is yours. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Hello, and thank you from my side also that I was invited here to talk about China and EU. I could just briefly tell about myself. My background is from investment banking, from London, Stockholm, Helsinki. After that, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so we founded a company, IT company, which was 1 year the fastest growing technology company in Finland, and now 2 times nominated as the best workplace in Finland, and last year also the best workplace in Europe. It's doing mobile software and being soon a very global company, but not going to China. I was CEO for that company for 8 years, but I wanted to jump back to the financing side, and during the past 3 years, me and my colleague from investment banking background also, we have been trying to figure out actually exactly what is stated here, how to get investments from China, from the rich China to the poor Nordic countries. Well, Nordic countries are actually have very good reputation in China, and also Estonia is having it as well, very, very rapidly growing reputation. But let's talk and see first about the general money or investment inward and outward flows. As you can see in the graph there, during the 80s and the beginning of 90s, there was almost none. The money outflows from China were almost non-existent. In the beginning of 90s, the money was flowing in, or the investments flowing in to China, but the break point actually was 2004 and 2005. Then the money started to flow out as well. And if you see the figures there, 2011, the outward foreign direct investments were around 50 billion USD, but it's estimated to grow up until 500 billion USD in 2020. So you're probably going to see a dramatic rise. Regarding the direct investments into EU, you see some figures there. Again, the earlier than year 2000, it was non-existent actually, but then it started to grow, and as you can see, 2011 the figure was already 10 billion USD. It feels that it could be a big figure, but it's only 4% of the total foreign direct investments in EU countries. So it's a very small portion compared to the size of Chinese economy. But where the money is flowing in, it's flowing, or why is it flowing in? It's because the Chinese want to have technology, brands, and very good engineering. And country-wise, you can see the map there. The darker the country is, the more it's getting investments. The Chinese used to invest in the UK a lot, but now Germany has taken the #1 position, France #2, and the UK #3. But of course it varies year by year, because there may be some big deals that are made, and then it varies, like I said. Sweden is very well colored here in this map as well, and that's mainly because of the two big car companies, but also some smaller acquisitions. And then when you look at Finland and Baltic countries, there's almost no color at all. Here it's pretty hard to see the figures here, but the same thing in figures. You can see France, UK, Germany during the 11 years or 12 years under this study. Sweden there actually on #4 place. Finland #15, only 5 deals made, 4 acquisitions, 1 greenfield project. There may be some more, but in this study you can get the feeling how it goes. And we have Estonia there, no deals at all. Regarding what the Chinese are interested in Europe, some figures industry-wise. The first one is chemicals, then it's utilities, automotive, etc. But communication equipment is actually, when you look at the number of projects, then that's #1. And they are almost all greenfield projects, and like companies like Huawei or ZTE are very good examples of those. I've also highlighted the renewable energy or alternative energy there. The deal sizes are small, but especially the greenfield projects, there are many greenfield projects on that area, and it's rising. Then just to talk a little bit about not so nice stuff, it's very good to know if you are in a company and want to get some Chinese investments or some Chinese company to, let's say, to buy your company, the Chinese company has to get many approvals. There are some ministries, or if the deal size is smaller, then it can be done on the local level, but still the companies cannot act by themselves only. And also, which is a little bit funny, the state-owned enterprises may have it even more harder. And this is very good to bear in mind if you're a big company and or smaller company and having an auction process. If you are selling your company, the European players, US players may act like in a couple of weeks' time's notice, but the Chinese, it takes time for the Chinese to act. Then regarding attracting the investments, a very recent study in China states that Chinese investors prefer Africa, Middle East and Latin America over Europe. And this may have something to do with the European or Euro crisis. As always, when we travel to China, that's one of the first questions that comes, that how is it about the Euro? You belong to Euro, what's happening, what's going on? It's a little bit better probably with Sweden and their krona. And regarding the future, how to attract investments, very stable economy that is very competitiveness, that's something the Chinese are looking after. And although sometimes people think that it's political reasons that Chinese are coming here to buy companies, that's almost in this study that's almost non-existent. However, in telecom industry and in some other industries, that has to be taken care of as well, or still. Then actually I jumped some slides regarding Finnish and Swedish transactions. The first transaction here, 2008 and 2009, Finnish Seska was acquired by Noisoft. The Chinese came, they had their European subsidiary in Germany, they bought the company, and nowadays there used to be 250 engineers in that Seska company, and now at least in Finland there are almost none. On the contrary, Huawei is building an R&D center, and at least some money is flowing from China regarding that and employing some people here in Europe in that sense. We have talked about Volvo before here. That's a good example. They are building R&D center, but you have to read today's news about Volvo and China. That's pretty interesting. I just read it like 15 minutes ago. It's not a funny thing, but when the Chinese and Saab were discussing and actually made the deal, that's how it goes when you want to transfer some data. And it sounds like 1,000 gigabyte hard disks and tons of paper, but in China there's a lot of labor force, and that can be handled and probably copied also. And as the last slide here, if you want to be an M&A target, you have to have really good value. You have to, in Europe, if you are good in Finland or Estonia or Sweden, that's probably not enough. You have to be good in all of the countries or many countries, and at least have some big country involved there. IPR issues are very important, and of course the brand. But just as a last point, and what we are actually doing with TT Capital Advisors, we are helping companies actually to go to China, to help them get investments in China, to establish a joint venture or get sales in China. In that way, you can attract the Chinese intention, and if you show that you are a very good provider of, let's say, energy efficiency, technology, and so on in China, they probably want to invest in your company in Europe later on as well. And that's actually the message what I want to say. If you're a SME company, you want to get venture capital financing, angel financing, or so on from China, that's almost non-existent. You have to go to China and get the financing in your Chinese subsidiary.
Okay, thank you. And now, okay. And now I am thinking maybe let's do so that I would like also to involve our audience here. Maybe you have questions already now to Markku about the presentation, because otherwise later you already, it shows that no questions are coming about that anymore. Or let's go then ahead. So, and now we got very good introduction to the topic. And I prepared also some questions to our panelists. And therefore, I think we may start from some very basic. And that is a question, which are then these motivating factors behind Chinese companies going abroad? And we have our Chinese expert here also, and he is doing also PhD about basically the same issue. What are the determinants of FDI? And so maybe Xiaotian, you can say a couple of words about the factors, and also maybe is it somehow evolving over time? Is it also changing over time? China 5 years ago, China now, and maybe China in 5 years in the future. So how these determinants may change?
Thanks for the question. I think if we talk about the motivations of Chinese companies invest abroad, we have to first divide the companies into two groups. The larger multinational corporations, or let's say mainly are the state-owned enterprises, and the second group is the private SMEs. So the first group, like the governmental-owned, or these larger MNCs, they are mainly driven by the resources. So most of the attractiveness for their investment, actually, if you look at the data, most of the money goes to the energy and the power and metals and other resources sector. And of course, follow after that is a technology acquisition and information acquisition. This is top three for them. And for the private SMEs, the main motivation for them to invest abroad is to of course, depend on sector, but lower the production cost, to lower the risk of being so-called put all the eggs in the basket of China. So they would like to diversify their strategy in a way to invest in more regions to lower risk, and also to increase their global market share. These three are the top motivations for the SMEs. And as I mentioned previously, that this situation is changing, and we can see the role of private investor is getting more and more important, and the increase in speed is getting more and more significant, and which is a good thing, because if we look at the Chinese government policies, every year they make over 15 policies regarding Chinese overseas direct investment, in terms of encouraging the private sector to go international. And this means the private SMEs has the opportunities. And I think the main changes will be the private sector will rise the role. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So maybe now I will continue from the point which was at the end of the presentation by Markku, and it is a point of regulation, state intervention and control in investments. And maybe, Raul, you can tell us a bit about this type of changes and attitudes, how China is now trying to change the rules and to create extra funds and to create some initiatives to invest abroad.
Well, I think this public pressure on Chinese companies to internationalize, what also Xiaotian mentioned, basically this go global policy. It's been around for a while, but looking from Estonian standpoint, then maybe most interesting part was a bit less than a year ago, when in Warsaw, Chinese premier at that time, so basically they're changing now, Wen Jiabao announced 12 cooperation points towards Eastern and Central Europe, somehow including also Estonia. And also that they will basically have a $10 billion credit line for Chinese company in investments, and also for about $1 billion for Chinese companies investing in those countries. This $10 billion was a loan credit line for countries, but the projects would have been basically kind of big infrastructure projects that, for example, in Estonia, when we want to build a bridge between the mainland and one of the biggest islands, and a project that the people have been discussing for a long time, the Chinese government would give a cheap loan to cover it and nominate the Chinese company to build it. So this is basically kind of market opening exercise from their part, and also helping Chinese companies to become more international and get those mainly infrastructure projects into their portfolios. Of course, if you look at examples, you can already find that they have been doing it in some countries. So bridge in Belgrade, something in Poland, and I think also some more countries have experience with such projects. In Estonia, the only experience what we've had is actually with our own money. We bought 16 trains from a Chinese company. And how it's connected with investments is that the same company was also applying, trying to actually participate at a tender for a tram project. So in Estonia, there was a public tender to buy trams, new trams, and the same company was trying to provide them with a hint that if they win the tender, they will also bring a production to Estonia and supply European markets from here. Somehow they didn't qualify for the tender because the source for the money for the tender came actually from CO2 sales from Spanish government. So the Spanish government didn't really want to have too much competition. So we haven't got that FDI at the moment. But of course, when you look at what we have in Estonia, then the question is like, is Chinese investment just a dream? Then regardless of all this global policy, Chinese companies have yet to find Estonia. We have about 7 million euros of Chinese investment, which composes less than 1% of FDI in Estonia. So basically we can say that we almost have no Chinese investment. There is one case since last year when it was a Chinese state-owned company but owned by a regional provincial government, announced 130 million euro deal. Basically they will invest that in Estonia in renewable energy projects, starting with a pellet factory. But again, announcing this number, that they have, the companies, they can also access different funds the Chinese government provides them to go overseas. So they are taking advantage of that. But again, basically, even if they announce a number, it really, what the number will be at the end depends on the business opportunities they can find. So in that sense, the public pressure, the global policy, it can make it easier for Chinese companies to go abroad, and it will provide them funds to do that. But it will still be driven by business considerations, in the sense that if they find a business opportunity, they will do it. And then you have to think what they're looking for. So they're looking for markets, they're looking for resources, they're looking for technology, and they're looking for maybe strategical assets. And then we have to think, okay, what can we provide? So we don't have this kind of big brand name companies that, like Sweden has, like Volvo, Saab, that have actually Chinese investors looking for them and already entering them. So in Estonian case, we're too small, or the companies are too small for M&A transactions. So, and to get greenfield investments, that's a bit bigger challenge. But actually, what Markku said at the end was getting venture capital investments to younger technology companies. And in here we have one example from Estonia, which is a company, well, headquartered actually today in Singapore, but from Estonia, to providing this kind of digital timestamping service. And they were, one of the investors was also from Hong Kong, the second richest guy in Hong Kong, Li Ka-shing, who invested into that company, and now the company is doing real headway inside the Chinese market. So if you have this kind of venture capital investment from China, then it really opens can open the market for you in the future. So you can grow not in the States, not in Europe, but actually the growth market for the company will be China, because with the investment comes connections, opportunities, and so on.
Okay, thank you. That was very insightful, and it also reminded me one fact which I read a couple of weeks ago, that 2 state-owned Chinese banks 2010 financed more developing countries than World Development Bank. That was a reality, 2010. So it indicates how they spread these investments and how they are going to developing countries, and that is mainly, of course, also this market seeking and resource seeking even more. But okay, let's come now back. And now what we have now not still had here is a point of view from really small companies. And Gert allowed to also to comment it from the point of view micro and small companies. What is their view on Chinese investments? So, please.
Well, I would try to make a general view from the small and micro companies. I've been sitting in the board of about 10 of them, and the CEO of a couple of them as well. And so I have some first-hand experience from working with venture capital. And what you have to look at first as a small company is what is it that you're looking for? What kind of opportunities is there in possible investment, and what kind of threats? And from the opportunity side, of course, it's very intriguing that you could reach a Chinese market. As we heard, you probably then have to open an operation in China for that to happen. You can get a network, you can get human resources, and also capital, of course. And I differ between 2 types of investments. One that I call the industrial investment, or driven by some kind of business logic that you want to reach a market, you want to have human resources, or something that you want to have that fits your business, or you have a capital investment. That's 2 different investments. And I think small companies are not really object for capital investment. They're too small. So we're often into this other sector. Then you have to think about, from the VC point of view, the venture capital point of view, if you have a fund of, let's say, 2 billion euros, would you invest those in 1,002 million euro investments, or anywhere 10,000.2 million euro investments? No, probably not, because the effort to manage all these investments, small ones, are basically the same as managing a large investment. It's actually more effort to manage small investments than larger ones, because the small ones often fail. So therefore, I would say we would not look for institutional investors, because these are the ones who have the 2 billion euro funds. We would probably look somewhere else. And another problem with the institutional or capital investments are the fact that they are working with, or is the fact that they're working with OPM, other people's money. They're not committed by themselves, and risk is something that someone else takes. I think there was a beautiful example here with the Estonian company. We have a wealthy entrepreneur who sees a business reason to invest into something in another country and bring it to his market or her market. That's the kind of investment we would look for. And being a small company, there's a huge upside, of course, but also a tremendous potential of a downside. And often it lies in your naive or unexperienced view on venture capital or the risk capital market. Sometimes we say that they take half when they go in and they take the rest when they go out, and people laugh and say, ha ha ha. I've seen it done twice firsthand, so I know it's true. You have to be aware, and if you're not aware, you can experience very bad things with your private economy, and not to say the least, your dreams. But if you handle it right, you can get fabulous support from business angels. I would like to bring up the example of Silicon Valley, which is based on a personal engagement of business angels to a large extent. Because these small investments take place in something that is known as the Death Valley in the venture capital business. You have seed money, often state capital, and then when you have grown your business and proven it, you can get funding from the larger venture capital funds. But in between, you have the Death Valley, and that's a very risky place to be, and often you have to have a personal engagement, someone who believes in you to make this investment. So this is a long answer to your question, but I would like to give some different views on from the small companies side, and what is very important, I think, once you decide to take someone on board, is to do what we call the cultural due diligence. Always the VC does the financial due diligence on you, means that they will scrutinize you, will look into your books, especially if your company is bleeding. They will take 3 extra weeks to really get you stressed, and then they will lower the price because they had 14 lawyers finding some errors in your bookkeeping. But as a object of this investment, you should be pretty cool and ask for a cultural due diligence. Ask to talk to other investment objects they have made, or other companies they invested in. Ask where they have had problems and solved them. Can I talk to these managers? Because I'm now going to marry you, basically. I want to know who I marry. And I actually made that once to a VC, and afterwards they told me that was a shock for them. And they really tried to sell to me why we should accept their investment. And that's a good way of doing it, because you have to make sure that these people, you know what they stand for, what are ethics and what have they done in other situations. So I think be street smart. There is no quick fixes. There is no money without a price. You have to be careful and think. And if it doesn't feel right, it is not right.
Thank you very much. I think it was very nice and based on your own personal experience, and that is extremely valuable. And now I think we should maybe go ahead, and I thought we may move our attention now again back to the China and look on our region. And now I am thinking already the Baltic Sea region, and not only Estonia or Sweden alone, but the region as such. And I was thinking to ask from Xiaotian maybe something like that, how Chinese investors are looking Baltic Sea area. Is it like a one destination, or it is not destination at all, and it is inside Europe as a destination? What do you think? How small we are looking from China?
Actually, interesting thing is that local Chinese people does not consider Sweden and Finland a small country. And in our mind, we have evidence here probably. But if we talk about the whole Baltic region, I think Chinese people still view them separately as Scandinavian and then 3 Baltic states. With 3 Baltic states, most of Chinese people knowing from a historic point of view that the Chinese people consider they are most advanced 3 states during the previous former Soviet Union time. And currently is a transition period. However, if I talk about only 3 Baltic states, for the Chinese entrepreneurs or investors, now they're looking at this more like, more and more people, of course, knowing this region. However, they're looking at this region as a new entry point to the European Union from both geographic advantages, as it's close to China, and also there's a lower competition in terms of internal among the Chinese investors. As it's a member of the European Union, then this is a new entry point to get access in terms of distributed products, enjoy the certain policy of the lower tax and all the other things. However, the major problem now they are facing actually is a lack of information in terms of 3 Baltic states. And what does it mean? First, to raise the confidence of the private investor, we need a successful story. So this successful story has to be known, and I think this can only be done by state level. It is rather difficult from the private level to make this first successful story. I think that this is state level. After this, it's easier. Second is the policies in terms of immigration, which has a certain limitation for the private investor, meaning I could invest here, but I may not be guaranteed to have a permanent right to live here. This also is an issue. And then there's others. But if we look at the Nordic and Scandinavian, Finland and Sweden, especially Sweden has already very long history and actually a positive history in terms of cooperating with China and attract bilateral trade. So this is, I think, China still views Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, and Norway as a whole region, more like this. And but it is knowing, and more people knowing that the Baltic region are more interacted with Nordic. So I think more and more people are view this as a whole region, but this concept is still rather new for most of entrepreneurs. Yes, and I think it just actually comment 8 for the morning session about the Nordic brand. I think it is not very necessary to promote all the Nordic states with one brand, but the Nordic brand is a concept which with a quality standard, reputation standard, that each member state could go towards this goal, and each state are flexible to operate and implement their strategy by themselves with similar standard, and this will give contribution to the reputation of Nordic brand. Yet, therefore, they will benefit the whole region. I think this is my point. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. So it means you stress the idea as a need to make basically place marketing in all these countries to market this place as a destination. Okay, so you see how controversial is basically the issue about investments. It's not so straightforward if we are talking about exporting to China or trying to sell goods in China. If we are talking about investments coming to our region, that is already, we saw already from this very small company's point of view, the issues which should be discussed. We see also the problems which Raul already mentioned in his comment about the areas where Chinese are ready to invest, and Markku already in the very beginning mentioned that. And I thought maybe, I think it is otherwise maybe too I could say traditional to let the questions from the audience to the end. And I think now it's the right time to ask, after this kind of discussion here, do you have some ideas you would like to ask something, and then we can go ahead, because otherwise, yeah, please, you have already, oh, there are several, so please. I give my microphone to you, I think that is the best.
Thank you. Markku and Tian already said something about this, but I would like to ask you about the private Chinese investors. Okay. There's been a lot of discussion that there will be, at some point, those private investors, but my question is, what do you think is the time scale, how long it will take, and what would be the business field that we would see private Chinese investors in the Central Baltic region?
Very good. So, please.
Thank you. I add something first. I think we have to look at, there's one issue is called the knowledge level of Chinese private investor. If we look at the current situation, the main activities in terms of private investor in this region are mainly in real estate and this private property, not much in the private companies, even in the high-tech companies, which are very attractive. This is due to they have very low knowledge in terms of overseas investment. So they're very afraid. And this is a learning process. And this learning process is gradually, and if we look at most of Chinese private overseas merger and acquisition, 80% are failed, actually. Most of them are failed because they don't have experience. If we could say China is a starter and a beginner in terms of overseas investment. So I think if we take a time scale, I would say for the private sector, it is still need 5 years. And we can see some significant increasing. But it can be faster, because I always believe the Chinese speed is faster than I thought. So that's my point. And Markku could add, yeah.
Yeah, I could add something, because like 2 years ago and a year ago, we were meeting around like private equity, venture capital, industrial investor, angel investors in China. And we asked this question that, okay, would you like to invest in Europe? What kind of businesses, companies, countries? And it actually, the same question came everywhere, that no, we are not interested. The Chinese market is growing much more rapidly than your market. If we would go somewhere, we would go to the USA, because almost all the VC company, the employees who are working there have studied in the US or worked also in the US and so on, so they know that market or Silicon Valley much better. And but still we have a good brand, the Nordic region, and then some points like clean tech, energy efficiency, and in some of those areas that could rise. So in my point of view, as you said, it could take a couple of years, and like here the example, Hong Kong could be. Hong Kong investors, they are more ready to invest in Europe because they have the long UK tradition.
Yeah. Okay.
And another interesting model, which are recently getting very popular, is so-called designed and researched in Europe, produced in China, and sells globally. If we look at the case that in the Zhejiang province, we have a few case companies which we did interview actually through our research. That previously they were the manufacturer for Italian leather company. So they produce for the Italian company, and then Italian firms sell this product globally. But now they change the role. They register their brand in Italy, so it's an Italian brand, and they ask the Italian manufacturer to produce for them, and then they sell back to China. Because Chinese people still believe Italian brand has better quality than Chinese brand. So this model is very popular because it somehow combines the advantage of European brand value, innovation capability, and Chinese huge demand in the market. This is a popular model. We could focus on this kind of model to attract certain type of investment. I think it makes sense and easier. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, or Raul and Chert, would you also like to comment to that question, or we will come to the next
maybe just briefly that
Of course,
I was wondering if you said private investor. There are many private companies in China that seem to be private, but basically have grown quite big, and they cannot really grow big without good government connections.
Yeah.
So it's I think that maybe the distinction sometimes can be difficult to actually put your hand on to. So yeah.
Okay, so would you like also to add something? Then we have full no discrimination. You have right to.
Okay.
To add.
I think it's very hard to make a prognosis of private investments unless they are backed or controlled by state. So if you take that away and just look at the pure private investments, I think again you have to look for investments done in a business logic situation. We have one example of a company who have taken part of these delegation trips we made over the last 17 years or whatever it is, where they made a mutual investment in a production plant. And I think that's what you will see happening more and more when companies go and do business in China, that you take your Chinese partner into a venture and you do it together. More, not like an investment from China to here, but a mutual investment in a venture that you go into together. I think that would be more common.
Okay, thank you. And now we had another question, so please, you can ask. And if you have third one, though, we have time for third question then.
Yes, I have a question for Markku. And then I'm not expert for investing banking, but I heard that the venture capital in, for example, the Chinese venture capital, they're not allowed to go in directly to put money into Europe, into US or something. It just I heard this. I want to you are expert. You explain to me. And then also I found a phenomenon that because I have many friends at my age, they are study overseas and then they back to China. And then today, if you go to China, you go to top universities like Peking University, Tsinghua University. Every week there will be a classroom in like any university, and a student putting their new business ideas to show there. And then any people can go there. And then there's a lot of millionaires. They're standing behind you, and then this guy is good. And then after that, they will meet you, guy. I give you 1 million to start up. Can you start this? So actually, this gave me ideas that then when we're talking about invest outside, okay, a lot of regulation, risk or something. Why not we go to China with the top technology, top ideas, cooperate with local companies and bypass all of this. And then hot money from the US, from Chinese, they're running on this market. But why not go there? Why not we have to go outside? I just you explain something to me. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Regarding the first part about the investing abroad, because well, most of the biggest venture capital funds, they have like RMB funds and USD funds that are actually based in British Virgin Islands and so on. So they can make investments abroad, but still it's pretty rare, and it's pretty rare to do that in Europe. And at least a year ago, like RMB funds were much more popular than USD funds. And exactly what you said as the second question or thought is that yes, that's what all the financiers or investors or VCs say, that bring the good technology company to China, let's make a joint venture or whatever, joint venture with the Chinese company, or just establish the company there, or it could be close to a university and so on, and then they would be very willing to invest in that. So that's a very good question. And after that, actually, that Chinese company, if that grows well and so on, that could actually acquire the small, probably Finnish or Estonian or Swedish mother company and so on. So it's a very good way to do it.
Okay, thank you. And now I think for the end of our panel, I still would like to come back to the bench original idea. It is cooperation between our countries. And my question is something like that. Which could be the areas, I could say sectors of economy, where cooperation between Baltics, Nordic countries could actually benefit and help to attract Chinese investments? Can you propose these areas where this kind of joint effort could increase probability that investments are coming? And I suggest one area already myself, which I already outlined here. It is a topic of connection from Europe to Asia is very big part happening via Vantaa airport, via also Copenhagen, Stockholm. So basically it is a hub between Europe and Asia. And now we have a flows of Asian tourists coming to us. And now next issue is what to do next, how to use this potential flows and what kind of investments may be created. And also, as I mentioned here, this case where in Iceland they rented a space for all kind of building tourist centers in Iceland. These are already examples from that field. And I know what maybe that is my one idea. So, but please, do you have ideas? Where could be potential benefits from that?
We can start, of course, with the clean tech business. If we can find more companies that are willing to grow and start enter to China, I can see that that's a large opportunity, and none of the companies or none of the countries are big enough to be able to succeed in China. So we would need the support from each other, and also I think to make combined offerings instead of just singular offerings, one product or one service. By collaboration, we've seen that in our network, we can combine several companies to produce a more complete offering that has a much higher value, and then I think that's an area to look further into. And then we need a larger resource base between these countries. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thanks. So, what else?
I agree with the first one. Clean tech is definitely one of the very promising areas. But just to build on this, one area where we don't actually have to try hard to cooperate would be tourism, because in tourism we actually are the same product.
Yeah.
And for a Chinese tourist, they don't want to stay in one country, but they want to have a good package and visit several countries. So basically, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, it's just one triangle. And if you add St. Petersburg, it actually becomes really attractive already. Yeah. So maybe in the future there would be a scope for maybe cruise, like Baltic cruise, only for Chinese. So today, for example, there is no such product on the market.
Yeah, that's true. So, other ideas, so please.
Yes. First, I also agree with Gert and Raul's opinion. Actually, in terms of tourism, I think this is absolutely makes sense. We already have quite successful cases at the University of Tartu in terms of the edutainment program of summer university. that is rather difficult to sell if we only attract students to come to stay in Estonia for 3 weeks. But when we add Finland and Sweden, and then this is already very attractive, and we are very successfully selling this program already 2 years. What I add, I think I would focus on the logistics sector, because Finnair represents Finland, that is one of most successful airlines which connecting Asia and Europe. And I think also the special, this geographic location of Tallinn Harbour and other harbors in the region can really build a very advanced network, not only for aviation, but for railway and truck distribution, as Estonia also have very good advantage in terms of know-how in the Russian market and in the former CIS countries. And this is very unique. So I think this sector could be very interesting. Yeah.
I don't have anything to add, just that, yeah, clean tech and so on, and this tourism, and a very good thing to tell to Chinese people if they want to come, tourists or business visitors, it's the shortest, absolutely the shortest route to fly from here to China, from Europe, and also the time difference. And that's a big thing. There's 1 hour more one business hour more during the day, or 2 hours more compared to the UK.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think now, do you have questions? One question is possible, I guess, and then we will be finishing time. If not, thank you. I think we saw how interesting and also complicated is the area of investments and attracting investments. And thank you, panelists, very much for this contribution. So.
And from my side, I would also like to thank you, Urmas, and panelists for this interesting discussion on a difficult topic. So we have presentations for you. Estonians get the presentations from Sweden, and Finnish and Swedish participants get from Estonia.